Good morning, everybody. So, today is a Sunday. I have got legs with Cuba, and I'm going to take you through my full day routine. Sundays are slightly different to a weekday in that I don't have check ins on a Sunday. However, I do have my clients that are competing at the moment, that are competing today that are checking in, or those that have just competed that are still checking in every day, or the ones that are still left to compete that are checking in every day. So I am still doing check-ins. It's just not kind of the usual big check-ins. It's more like the daily mini check-ins that are going off on a Sunday morning. It's a day that I use to get my admin work done. It's a day that I use to be able to get other life things done, just that you potentially don't have time for during the week. And creating for that routine is what allows for the flow of life to make sure I can get everything done from a life perspective, clothes washing, etc., as well as obviously everything else that I need to get done when it comes to coaching during the week as well. So that is the morning routine. I essentially get up, make my bed, go downstairs, do some little bits in the kitchen, get my coffee, come upstairs, start working. If it is a normal check-in day, I will do my big check-ins at that point. That's where I do the majority of my block of work for check-ins. I aim to make sure that all of my check-ins are done before I go out and do my walk. Sometimes if it's a bigger check-in day, they might actually be a little bit after the walk. I like to make sure that I go for a walk when there's not too many people about, just so that I'm not getting stopped too many times, because I live in an area that I have done for 31 years, so I knew everybody. So sometimes it's nice to be able to just, put a podcast on, get outside, do a little bit of walking, talk to the dog, have the connection with her, and then obviously get back home. Might be a little bit more work, or into obviously then eating breakfast. Lucky, Cuba actually always makes my breakfast, which is nice, especially at the minute because it's pancakes. I probably couldn't make them as good as what he could. I would make them, yeah, but I probably wouldn't make them as well as what he does. So I'm very appreciative of that. So that is the morning routine. It is the same every day. I don't care. I don't care that it's the same every day. It's why I'm actually very, very lucky or happy that I go out. God, I sound like I'm 15. That I'm married to a bodybuilder, because it doesn't matter that I'm also boring. I don't want to go out for a meal every week. I have to work. In an evening, sometimes I have to work. I love to go to the gym. I love to eat well. Like, I likely couldn't be married to slash be in a relationship with someone that doesn't do that, because they just wouldn't understand. And that's not a bad thing from their part, and it's not a bad thing from my part. But I don't want to have that pressure where I have to be pressured to do the things that potentially I don't want to do. And yes, there's compromise in a relationship. It has to be a two-way street, 100%. That comes for coaching as well. But I also want to be able to be myself. And the fact that I can do that and be that way, because that's how I've always been. I've been in elite sport for a very long time, since I was 3. So as much as probably people that watch my YouTube think, oh, you're very restricted, you finished competitive bodybuilding, you're not living your life, etc. This has been my life forever. I have ate well, I have had a routine, I have always trained in some capacity, I have always wanted to work to make sure that everything can keep the flow. I like to be productive. I don't like to just sit on the sofa and mung out. Like, there might be a couple of days in a year where that happens. Christmas is usually a time that we let for that to happen, but because that's only once in a while, it's actually quite nice. Whereas if I did that all the time, I just feel like I'd have a very unproductive way of being, and everybody's different. Like, that's not no pass on anybody. Everybody can do what is right for them and what feels good for them. But for me, that's what feels good. So having someone who also is that way, it's actually very nice. Um, you don't have to go out with a bodybuilder, by the way, and you can be totally different to me, but that is what I do. And I feel like it's also been the way that I've been able to create success as an athlete when I was an athlete, and then continue to keep the flow of life going, even kind of continuing on from the stage. So that is my morning routine. We are likely gonna get a next clip at breakfast, and we will run through that. Extreme effort.
that is when you actually have to scale things back. And you need to take your sets to failure without changing your execution in any way, shape, or form. If you have to change your execution, your range of motion, your posture, your exercise setup, your tempo, in any way, shape, or form to simply get more reps, that is when you take your sets past failure. And that is when you get yourself in a position where you will get to a point where you simply cannot recover well, and you cannot have consistency in progression session to session, because you are taking the reps that are just simply not there. And the worst part is, generally most people will always track these reps, and then it's literally impossible to be able to progress that on a weekly basis. And this is the reason why a lot of people actually fall out with logbooking, is because they are not logging quality reps, they are logging reps that are past failure. So for now, or at the start, aim to take all the sets to failure. When you get to a very high level of execution and effort, keep in mind, maybe one rep away from true failure, because your perception of failure changes. Does that make sense? I'm trying to explain it in as simple terms as possible so can everyone get a full grasp and understanding of what the actual difference is. Right.
Cooper, could you touch on potentially the fake failure?
Yeah, maybe that's a good point as well. Now, both myself and Meg, we do have all of you send over footage for assessment. I have now been coaching 12 years, and I've spent 12 years, 13 years, I think 13 years, right? I spent 5 years coaching in person, doing around 40 hours per week. So I have seen.
So that was a pre-workout meal. Pre-workout meal is always eaten around 11:45. Pretty much our days are essentially the same. I think if you've got to or want to run a tight ship, plus, you know, we want to be able to have an hour in front of the telly in an evening. We want to be able to have everything moving well, make sure that business is good, make sure that service stays fantastic for clients. In order for that to happen, you've got to run a very tight ship, keep a very timely schedule, and I do think for the most part, most people can do that. It's just making that happen that's the most important thing. It's one of the biggest things that I work on with most competitors when we first start is the routine, and I don't think that they realise how good it is for their productivity, but even when they come away from bodybuilding, how good it actually is for life to be able to keep the flow of it, keep stress low, etc., not feel overwhelmed, and even allow for a little bit of time where you can switch off a little, because you don't want to lead into burnout. I think one thing that people try and flex a little bit at the minute is working all the time, which, yes, you have to work hard. Yes, to run a good business or a good career, you are going to be working, but there's got to be an element of some time in the year where you do have a little bit of downtime in order not to keep burnout happening, so that you can keep service high, so that you can keep on top of making sure that you are giving back. And it's very important. So running a tight ship is what will help things move well. Anyway, in for legs we go. Forward. So that is post-workout training. And now I'm having my second to last meal before I have my pancakes later. Training was great, and Cooper was right. Setting the tone for my off-season with my training was what was needed in order to make progress. I'm really bad in that I push too hard, and that's the same when I was in prep. Sometimes I don't want to push harder when it comes to doing more steps, doing more cardio, and I would just talk about it, because I would never not do what's on my plan, but I would want to do that, and I would say, do I not need to push harder, etc. Probably a little bit frustrating, but I would always stick to the plan. But in my own opinion, if I had a client that was wanting to push harder compared to someone that wants to push forward, I'd probably prefer that. I mean, it's nice when someone just listens, but I also understand from an athlete's perspective that you do just want to sometimes push more, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not so good. Like for me with training, if I would have gone in and tried to lift as heavy as I possibly could, yes, those first couple of sessions would have probably been great, but then my runway to make progress would be lesser, because I wouldn't have set my form, I wouldn't have set my tempo, I wouldn't have then been able to comfortably progress that over time. I would have then had to strip the weight back, focus on form, just kind of losing time, and then often it leads to not seeing that progress when it comes to strength, etc. I've not rang a hack squat for 3 years, maybe a little bit longer, because I've had some troubles with my knees. We've done some things to help them get better. Use, it is in the cupboard because oh dear. It is in the cupboard because you do actually use it. The Join In from Trained by JP. Use my code MEG10. And I also use the OsteoPro, and that will be in this little pile of things here, but I'm not going to... See, it is here, OsteoPro, as well as very high doses of curcumin. I actually use 800 milligrams of curcumin daily, because there's not really anything in terms of foods that is bioavailable in it. So that is a very good product. My code MEG10, and some actual knowledge bombs for you there to help you with your lovely joints. I'm not going to say that it's going to help someone like who's got a really bad issue where they've got like serious problems, but you know, when it comes to someone who it's a little bit degenerative, they are getting a little bit older, etc. Like for me, it's been massive. And I know that I'm not like really old, but because I've done sport for so long, my joints are essentially like a 90-year-old. So it really does help me, and I wouldn't say it does if I didn't. And if you followed my things for a long time, you know that I actually wouldn't, because I don't product push. I only would use, I mean, I was using Trained by JP for 2 years before I even got asked to be an athlete. And that 1 year of that was actually before I even started being in a relationship with Cooper. So it wasn't even driven by that. So you can actually see that it was something that I thought was useful. So I'm going to eat my meal. I've just talked to you about my shenanigans when it comes to training and my thoughts, feelings, emotions. And this is essentially me for the day. My little bit of chicken just sneaked out from my air fryer. And I'm going to have my last meal. I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to have my last meal at 7:45. Go to bed at 8. Get up at 4. That is the routine. That means that 4 o'clock's a decent time for Australian and American clients as well. Morning, evening, etc. And then like this weekend with Albin, one of my wonderful amateur clients. He was competing in Singapore, and no, he wasn't. He was competing in Vietnam. He's from Singapore. I stayed up to make sure that he was feeling supported and happy, because regardless of whether you're a pro athlete or an amateur athlete, you're putting 100% in. If I had a coach and I was putting 100% in, and just because I wasn't a pro athlete, I wasn't getting the treatment, I'd actually be very upset. So I give everybody my 100%, and I make sure that I only take on enough clients that I can actually give that to, because that's important as well. Anyway, I'll show you my, what's it called? Pre-bed meal. Probably just show it as a thing. But that is my day. That is my routine. That is my shenanigans. Maybe I'll do one that's like a full work day in terms of like morning block of check-ins, etc., so that you can see that a little bit more. But essentially, my days are the same. My work was just different compared to like full-blown check-ins today. But like, work is never ending, especially if you want to make sure that things go well. Because even things like housework is working. Just kidding. Right. I'm going to show you my video, but like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Comment, full day. Let me know what else you'd like me to cover down below, please. Because I know that we've got some traction here and people do speak to me. Also, the person who suggested this, because I do actually listen. Someone suggested for me to get a Brita. What's it called? Water funnel. Water filter instead of using bottled water. So I have done it. Saves you a few bob.